The Colorado Springs real estate market just experienced one of the highest days to sell and inventory spikes since 2015. Now, buyers are hesitant to buy and sellers are struggling to sell regardless of multiple price drops, but home prices still aren't coming down in Colorado Springs, unfortunately. Really a unique and interesting housing market for sure. But why is this happening? If available homes for sale are going up, you get more options and days on market are going up, then why aren't housing prices coming down? Well, I'm glad you asked because that's exactly what we're talking about in today's video. But first, let's get some backstory. And if you're not interested in the tea, then you can skip to the next chapter as I will have those timestamps down below. The last few months have been really tough for real estate agents, buyers, sellers, and apparently these two guys. And then you have real estate agents not even able to sell homes, and 75% of them not even selling not one house this year in 2025.
There's a stat that came out within the last couple of weeks. This year, 75% of the 70,000 realtors have not done a transaction yet this year.
At least that's according to these guys. And I'm not sure how true that specific stat is for 2025. I didn't research it because I know that last year it was a similar stat. So either way, if most real estate agents aren't selling homes because either they don't have the skill to do so in a down market, or they're just not getting the business that they are used to, that does create some pressure all around. Now, listings are expiring and sellers are changing their minds because they can't get the price that they need to move on. So then the house comes off the market. They take listings that they never should have because the seller is unrealistic and unwilling to reduce the price. Recently, I had a seller that was not realistic with the market and I marketed the heck out of this home and he just refused to deal with the reality of the market. And, I gave him all the feedback. We had 52 showings and pretty much they were all saying the same thing, overpriced. And a lot of people didn't like how slanted the driveway was. And we did get offers, but the offers were not what he was expecting. And I got even worse offers after that. And it was just something that we couldn't come together on. And I shared all of this with him and we worked tirelessly. And finally at the end, it was just, we have to part ways. And so that's pretty much what's happening a lot. But we'll dive into that a little bit more later in the video to kind of show you the numbers of what's happening and why I think that the prices are not coming down. But it's not just the sellers that are being unrealistic, it's also the buyers. They think that the market is crashing when it's really not. And they're losing out on achieving home ownership in Colorado Springs because they're either lowballing sellers, even if the house is fairly priced. But I think the really tricky part here is that sellers who bought at the end of 2021 or later are probably upside down after fees and the very little equity that they have as the market is adjusting to high interest rates and an unsure economy and financial future. And an unsure financial future, no one is going to buy a house if they feel that they might lose their job, especially a home that looks like a dump and it needs work. You can't charge a premium when your carpets are trash and the water heater and furnace are as old as the dirt underneath them. And with all the uncertainty all around us, people are just holding off because either they can't afford it, they're putting their dreams on hold, and they're just not as excited to move forward. So should you buy a home this year in 2025 and 2026? Well, we will answer that towards the end of the video. I have an interesting situation to share that hopefully will keep you out of any real estate drama. And if you do decide to buy, you have to follow these tips so that you don't get screwed in the end. But for now, let's just dive into the real estate numbers so far this year. Sales are pretty low. We're supposed to be starting our peak season here in May of 2025, and the number of sales in Colorado Springs are the lowest that they've been in over a decade. Now, I only pulled stats over up to 10 years, so it could be even more than that. But the bottom line is that it's been a very long time that sales have been this low. I feel like morale is pretty low. Seems like people are pretty cranky. People are broke. Real estate transactions are tough with tensions between buyers and sellers. It's just a lot more common to have that tension. Buyers don't feel like the house is worth what that sellers are asking for. Sellers feel it's worth more. So negotiations can be intense at times. In March of 2025, Colorado's job scene was a bit of a mixed bag, and the state added 6,800 new jobs, mostly thanks to retail workers coming back after a strike and some growth in business services. Still, the unemployment rate went up a little from 4.7 in February of this year to 4.8 in March, and there were actually fewer people working and looking for work overall. Now, the new stats are going to come out, and I can definitely go over those with you. Just make sure you are subscribed and leave a comment. Just let me know if you want to learn more about the unemployment rate right in how the actual overall economy here is going. But over the past year, the job growth in Colorado has been pretty slow, just about 0.1%, which is a lot less than the national average of 1.2%. Most of the new jobs came from government, while the private sector actually lost some jobs. On the bright side, though, people who are working are making a lot more money, with the average hourly rate being $39.20, which is $3 more than the national average. And people are working slightly longer hours too. So while there are some positives, the overall job market is still a bit sluggish. So is this a buyer or a seller's market? Well, according to the data, market trends for Colorado Springs show that it is still a seller's market because we still don't have nearly enough homes to supply the demand. So we have about half the amount of homes that we need in order to even get closer to a balanced market. And then when you look at the days on market and the absorption rate and the months of supply, you're looking at 3 months, and a balanced market is closer to 6 months. And so that's far off from where we need to be for this to be a buyer's market. Now, when it comes to expired listings, we had a ton of expired listings in 2024 and 2025. December of last year was pretty insane. So this is why prices aren't coming down, because people are just pulling their houses off the market, or they're just relisting it at a later date. Like I said before, they can't come down on price. They have to at least break even. And then on the right of this chart, you see that there are canceled listings as well. I only did from January through May because it's the beginning of June right now. So I only collected data for the first 5 months just to compare apples to apples, and it looks like 2025 is leading the way on canceled listings. And on the topic of canceled listings, as of April of 2025, we had an overwhelming amount of pending home sales that fell through, meaning the buyer did not follow through with the home purchase. 14% of pending home sales are falling out, with 16.4 in the Denver metro area. So about 56,000 U.S. home purchase agreements were canceled in April this year, which is up from 13.5% and is the highest April share in records dating back to 2017, besides April of 2020, when the virus brought the housing market to a halt. And this is data from Redfin. When it comes to national delinquency rates, we're still historically low, and so we're sitting at about 3.21%. Even though the numbers are trending upward, we're still historically low pre-pandemic delinquency rates for first lien mortgages. And then when you're looking at active foreclosures, we're still, again, historically low with foreclosures. Mortgage delinquency rates remain near historic lows, but are trending higher year over year, propelled almost entirely by FHA loans, according to ICE.com. And the southern states are leading 90-plus day delinquency rates. But for foreclosure starts, we do remain flat from the previous month, and we're up 28% year over year, but again, still historically low, below pre-pandemic levels. Now, I had mentioned earlier on how to protect yourself when it comes to buying an existing home in Colorado Springs. You really need to make sure that the seller can, in fact, sell that home. This hasn't really been an issue in the past, but it's coming up more and more now that people are upside down on their mortgages and they're having to bring money to closing. Make sure that the seller is able to sell that property. Otherwise, you get all the way through it and the seller has way too many liens on their home to be able to sell that property. As soon as you get that title commitment from the title company, make sure you review it. Make sure you look at all the liens before moving forward. Some of these sellers have not been paying their mortgages, or they're behind on their HOA for 1 or 2 years. Maybe they've lost their job and they're not going to share that information willingly with the buyer or even their agent. Sometimes their agent doesn't even know what's going on with their finances. So as you're purchasing existing homes, make sure that you are doing a lot of due diligence and finding everything out about that property that you can. The average days on the market is closer to 2 months, which is rising, but it's still not a buyer's market. Even though buyers have more options and they have more room for negotiations, that does not mean it's a buyer's market. The median home price is still trending upward, which indicates strong buyer demand. So just know all this as you're out there and have your expectations set before you buy a house. I always think that it's a good time to buy a house. Historically speaking, it's usually gone up over time. I found this really cool cool graphic from Madison Trust Company where it shows the average home cost over time starting in the 70s all the way to 2020 with a crisis or a recession or a crash here and there. But generally speaking, the average home cost has gone up. It's easier to refi than it is to buy a house with yesterday's prices, unless you plan on purchasing in a down market, but those can be hard to predict at times. Guys, my name is Iris. I'm a real estate agent in Colorado, and I've lived here for pretty much all of my life in the trenches. I am selling and buying real estate. So if you need help, please feel free to reach out, call or text me, or you can shoot me an email. I'd love to help you navigate your real estate going forward. If you want to find the best places to purchase real estate, then you can watch this video that is popping up next on the screen. I'll see you on the next one.